All right.
I think, yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom. And it was a very nice session, very nice presentation. And I'm sure that all the participants are enriched by the session by Tom. I also would like to add here that very soon we are going to organize the on-field workshop, like that is on hands-on techniques and hands-on training for almost 4 to 5 days. The workshop with the both the same speaker, like Tom and Fayaz will come physically in Gujarat with us, and Tom will be online, and we will do 4 to 5 day hands-on training and workshop on the eco restoration, not only the wetland, but we'll try to cover all the different land use for the wetland and other lands for the eco restoration. So with that, we are switching over to the next speaker. Next speaker is Dr. Faiyaz Khudsar. फयाज, थोड़ा सा अपना लैपटॉप ऐसे करो तो आपका मुंह दिखाई हो. क्या बात है, क्या बात है. All right. So Dr. Faiyaz Khudsar is a well-known field biologist. Uh, there are many memories of me and Fayaz. If I start sharing it, then it can be another session in this workshop. So I'll not share those memory. But yeah, whenever I read the name Fayaz, or whenever I remember Fayaz, all these memories is becomes more and more fresh in my mind. Dr. Fayaz and I, we were working since last 10 to 12 years. We are working together. Dr. Faiyaz Khudsar is currently posted at Scientist F in University of Delhi, and he is now in charge of all the biodiversity parks which are there in Delhi. But he is a pioneer guy who has fixed this concept of biodiversity park and the floodplain restoration or eco restoration. Yamuna Biodiversity Park is the best example of Fayaz's hard work, and I'm sure that he is going to talk about how he developed the Yamuna Biodiversity Park. I also request Fayaz to add what are the struggle he has done, and what are the pros and cons of doing this floodplain restoration, and how he got this huge success while he restored the wetlands of the Yamuna. So one more thing about Fayaz is Fayaz has done his PhD on the Asiatic lion, especially on the second home of Asiatic lion, that is Kuno Palpur Sanctuary in Madhya Pradesh. He has done the habitat suitability analysis. So Fayaz is a hardcore ecologist, not only eco restoration, but he has his keen knowledge in all the aspects of the ecology, mainly the habitat modeling, habitat evaluation, and the mammalian ecology. Very soon, Fayaz will be visiting Gujarat for the on-field workshop for the eco restoration, maybe in late October or maybe in November, and we will have many more sessions of Fayaz once he is in Gujarat. So, Fayaz, with that, I am switching over to you, handing over to you, and now you can start your presentation. All yours, Fayaz.
Thank you so much, Nishit. Actually, it's wonderful interacting with all the young people, and especially I have seen Tom presentation. It's very interesting to see that. Let me make it in. Could you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, but actually, it's very interesting to see that while talking about the river across the world, they are suffering, and especially when we talk about rivers in India, most of the time we always bring what you call Thames River into action, that will convert River Yamuna as a Thames River, and most of our political leader actually brings Thames now and then while addressing the rivers issue. So it is very important to understand that river ecosystem are highly degraded, we all know, and the water quality is such that it cannot even fit for irrigation purpose, especially in urban stretches. So what is the answer to it? Actually, how to restore this river ecosystem is a biggest issue, and I would be bringing you something what we are doing on the field. When you look at the river, it is not moving. What happened? Just a moment. Slide is not moving. Nishit, just a moment.
We can see only the first slide.
It is not moving. Just a moment. Just a moment.
Yeah.
What happened? Should I stop share, then I do it again?
Yeah, you can do it again.
Now you can see.
Yes. Can you
So
move the slides?
yes.
Yeah.
Can you see?
That's
So
right.
when you look at the river characteristic across the India, this is the character. The first slide shows the river Yamuna in Delhi stretch. The first train which meets the river Yamuna near Wazirabad, and this is their structure. If you see this important structure in Delhi, which is known as Signature Bridge now, is when it was being constructed. I click this photograph, and this is the first train, that is Najafgarh train. Historically, it was a Sahibi river bringing water from Aravali Hill ranges to River Yamuna. But over a period of time, this Sahibi river became a Najafgarh train, which is clearly visible. Not only that, that river, mighty river like Ganges, when you see, which has a lot of mythology associated with, which we respect like anything. If you see the status of that river, still we have so much of respect. We carrying Ganges water from those areas. So therefore, it is very important to understand that what is floodplain. When you look at the floodplain, it is generally seen as a flat area or a land next to a river or a stream. When you see this structure, which shows that in normal condition, a river flows in the river channel with this meandering, but during flood, the entire area is filled up. And the area which is filled up, normally called as floodplain. So how do you see floodplain? Floodplain, in fact, involve range of phenomena, ranging from catastrophic event to intermediate disturbances. And many times, this flood creates a lot of problem across the world. But the most important characteristic feature of what you call floodplain is fluvial dynamics, which is get generated through flow of water. What is this fluvial dynamics? That is very interesting to understand. Any floodplain, these fluvial dynamics are very, very important. In fact, when you look at the fluvial dynamics, in fact, fluvial process usually involved in river valley and river channel, where formation of river channel formation, which include, in fact, erosion. That is very important aspect of fluvial dynamics, both vertical and lateral. Then withering and mass movement, transportation and deposition. So simply floodplain can be seen as a landscape feature which gets inundated by water from the adjacent or neighboring river. And it also can be seen, floodplain also can be seen as a geomorphic features formed and influenced by river flow. So this floodplain is always maybe converted into in a different feature altogether sometime. And that's why our floodplain, Indian floodplains, are very different from Thames River, because Thames River is a very predictive flow with a very predictive flow. What would be the water? How much water? When? What is the water level at what time? You can predict in Thames River, but Indian River cannot be predicted. You all know. So when you look at the riverine landscape, which can be seen as a very expensive, what do you call, system. It's a big system whose function and structure are determined by the river, its flow regime, etc. And in fact, it all depends on the interrelated system consisting of river and its surrounding. And therefore, restoration of river requires improving channel morphology, which includes all depth, bed characteristic, meandering, etc., and flow regime, water quality, biological diversity, and the riparian floodplain habitat in a manner that ensure their interaction. So while talking about restoration, as Tom was already shown many slides, it is not only digging and bringing water, but many other interactions are required to address very trophic cascade so that that system becomes functional ecosystem. So overall in Indian scenario, when you look at the threat to floodplain and riparian ecosystem, the major threat we find is land use changes. Land use changes. Today, there is a floodplain. Tomorrow, you have multi-story building. In every landscape, especially in urban centers. And mining, another big issue, which is creating serious threat to the floodplain. Invasive species, when you look at floodplain, is a serious matter which is not being seen seriously. For example, even weedy species like Prosopis juliflora are invading many floodplain. Eichhornia, alternanthera, there are many weeds which are creating and choking floodplain wetlands and creating problem for the floodplains because there are intensive agriculture practices which brings a lot of fertilizers which further altered NPK level and creates problem. Further, you have sewage discharge, both including industrial discharge, and now we have started construction right in the bed of floodplain, and even your estate is another example to see the what you call development of one of the well-known what you call floodplain that is in Ahmedabad. Then encroachment is taking place, and ultimately all these issues get aggravated when climate change become a reality. So when you look at floodplain, generally floodplain can be seen in a two-part. One is inactive floodplain, where rarely you get flood or you don't get flood, and active flood zone which periodically receives flood, and even in low flood it receives flood. So therefore, both the landscapes are very different, both structurally and functionally, and therefore you need different set of restoration planning for both the what you call landscape, both the riverscape in fact. So when you look at the history, the vast floodplain of major rivers like Ganga and Yamuna used to have vast network of natural wetland, and some of the wetlands were being seen as a catchment wetland, and others were used to clean water, wastewater, because earlier water never going directly to the river, they were going through the wetlands in floodplain where you had a lot of plants, animals interacting together, and those sewerage going through those wetlands, getting clean, and more lesser BOD and more DO would be going to the riverine system. But we all know that both types of wetlands are threatened now due to many what you call activities, which is anthropogenically mediated, and major factors which I mentioned in threat, that filling of wetlands for agriculture purpose, for house construction. In some of the states, I have seen that wetlands in a what you call residential area first being filled by sewage, then it is a complaint goes to the municipal corporation that a lot of mosquitoes are breeding. Municipal corporation comes and filled up that area, and you lose your wetland. So construction activities are going on heavily. Even city like Delhi is not spared. Discharge of large quantity of untreated sewage and industrial effluent, creating further problem for this floodplain. So therefore, only answer left is ecological restoration. And how do you see ecological restoration? In fact, it is not a rocket science. It requires observational skill to understand, knowing the fact that ecology is a new science. Therefore, how much you observe, it all result into action in the field. So therefore, you through ecological restoration, you help an ecosystem which is degraded, damaged, or even lost. So, and it depends on it. There is a full science based on it that is known as restoration ecology. So, when I will bring to the restoration planning for both inactive and active floodplain before I go to my examples. So, first and foremost thing is when you look at the inactive floodplain, most of the landscape which is available for restoration are highly degraded. Either they are filled with solid waste, or there are many, dumping. It becomes a dumping site, in fact. Then you need to look at those areas, that how you clean those areas. Then when that area is ecologically not sound, nutrient deficit, then you get a lot of invasive species inside. So you need to remove those invasive species. Then you looking at the ecosystem approach, therefore you have to create various species. You restore the wetland and then establish floodplain, forest, grassland, marshes. And long-term monitoring is very important, because many times you go for mid-term intervention. Because when you look at the ecological restoration, it is not about digging and planting. It depends, actually it lies on a sound ecological principle that says that you need to have a site. The moment you got a site, you look at the ecological history of the site, then you try to find out, reference ecosystem, either from your neighborhood or from far away. If you don't have any reference ecosystem in the surrounding areas, then depending on the availability of fund and manpower resource, you fix priorities. And midterm evaluation is very important, because if you keep monitoring, only then you come to know that the design, the process, the ecological processing which you have designed is going in right direction or not. So therefore, when you look at the restoration in active floodplains, actually it requires, first and foremost thing, it requires the restoration of existing wetland and marshes. How you do it? You desilt it. How you desilt it? You look at the various contours, because during desiltation and establishment of wetland, what plays very important role is contours, because contours is the character which brings various species to interact together. So therefore, desiltation followed by shoreline establishment, then removal of invasive species and establishment of floodplain, forest and grassland, and for which you need to look at the indicated species existing on the surface. That's historically it was a wetland, or still it has some water on it. You also, in floodplain, you also look at the successional process, because plantation scheme largely depend on flood pulse, and you need to have a data of 20-25 years to understand the flood pulse of the area, and on the basis of which you decide contours and altitudinal level you take into consideration for plantation. So what is the issue now? When you look at the vanishing wetland from the floodplain of major rivers, how you do it and what you do it. So over a period of time, say around 13 to 18 years, we successfully restored dead wetlands of River Yamuna in upstream of Wazirabad, and also brought back some of the vanishing flora and fauna in the form of Biodiversity Park. The concept evolved and implemented in Delhi for the first time. A legendary ecologist, Professor C.R. Babu, former Vice Chancellor of Delhi University, has given this concept. And so, therefore, we find, not we, but in fact, when you look at the website of CPCB, we have sent a concept note of Biodiversity Park for floodplain restoration. It is right there. Even Honorable NGT has given many judgments suggesting that if you want to restore floodplain, please see Biodiversity Park model as a viable option. So, what are Biodiversity Park? Do you see Biodiversity Park? Since we were the first to start the concept of Biodiversity Park, given by Professor C.R. Babu, who is the mentor of actually our development. So then we had published a paper, and where we have shown the definition of Biodiversity Park. It should be seen as a designated site with the assemblage of species. That is very important. What do we do in Biodiversity Park? We bring assemblage of species in the form of biological community. How? Because these assemblages of species accelerate the successional process. If you look at the natural system of succession, it may take hundreds of years, but in a smaller time period, like 5 to 10 years, we develop functional ecosystem through assemblage of species, which says top canopy, middle story, and ground vegetation. And that should be from a particular ecological range. If we are talking about floodplain, Yamuna floodplain, then that forest community must belong to Yamuna floodplain, not from the Western Ghat. Only then you can get necessary ecosystem function. provide conservation, education, and recreational benefit to the city. So I would be talking about Yamuna Biodiversity Park, which is spread over an area of 457 acres, about 185 hectares. It is divided into two parts, if you see. One is in inactive floodplain and other is in active flood zone. Even in low flood, this river Yamuna gives water to this area in phase 2. Both the phases has been connected with the ecological corridor which we have created. And in 1978, when entire North Delhi was flooded, one bund embankment has been created here, which is known as Jagatpur Bund, where we have already suggested a green bridge. So let's see, it will come soon, and that will become first of its kind in India. So when we got this piece of land, it was a generally flat land. It was part of inactive floodplain due to Jagatpur embankment, and some of the areas were subjected to seasonal flooding, and it has predominantly alkaline soil and saline water. These were the challenges because soil was highly alkaline, and initially when you see we had Pseudo fruticosa, Carasa, Halotropium, etc., which are soil-loving bush, which are halophytes, and the land was flat like this. If floodplain is where you find very flat areas, and there were some indicators like typha and phragmitis, and you see these availability of clay, which suggests that these areas were wetland once upon a time, silted over a period of time. So these were the indicators available on the ground when we came. And today, when you come, this biodiversity park looks like this. How we have started. If you look at the process, actually, when we got this project in 2002, we were asked to present before Honorable LG. And when we started presenting this case, all those bureaucrats sitting there, they said, no, this is not possible because this land is not productive. It is full of salt. pH is very high. So it is impossible to do anything. So we had suggested that we will restore this entire wetland where birds from Europe, Siberia, China will come. And we have restored forest ecosystem so that herbivore followed by carnivore will come. But they were not convinced. Since LG was involved, he compelled official to accept it, and they said, we'll give you this project for 3 years, but we refused to accept this project. We said, nobody has so far worked on reconstruction of ecosystem for such a scale. So therefore, we need a gestation period of minimum 10 years. So due to LG intervention, we got this project. But surprisingly, when we came to the site, we started plantation in a corner, but our dream shattered badly because all plants died in 10-15 days. We were in fact shivering. Then we rushed to Professor C.R. Babu, who was Vice Chancellor at the time of Delhi University. I said, sir, we spoke very high before the LG, and now everything gone. What to do? Then Professor Babu asked us that go and speak to soil. And then we did soil profile and find that pH is very, very high. Then we decided that we must do some sort of landscaping in inactive floodplain so that salt may leach down from those landscapes. And for which we had requirement of huge amount of soil. And if you bring soil from somewhere else, it not only cost a lot, but it will cause serious ecological disaster to that site. Therefore, we started looking at various indicator species, suggesting that subsoil aquifer is very high, and they were typha and phragmitis. Those cattails suggested that subsoil aquifer is very high, or in other words, there was a wetland, historical wetland, which has been silted or filled up. So we, looking at the contours, we traced the area, if you see, and we created narrow shallow wetland of more than 1.5 kilometers. Dr. Nishit Dharia has seen this wetland, and today that wetland looks like this. We have taken this photograph through drone last year, and if you look at this wetland through various niches, this is island, and these are shoreline vegetation, if you see, and then these are riparian forest which we have created over a period of time, 16 to 18 years time, if you see, clearly visible. And this is the wetland, long wetland, narrow shallow wetland of more than 1.5 kilometers. So what we achieved, you may ask, that a bird which we have lost the breeding ground 50 years ago in Delhi, they started coming in, and that is black crowned nighthawk. Not only black crowned nighthawk, but many other birds, started coming in, and we have created huge heronry. The only heronry in Delhi NCR region. When you visit this park in the month of April, May, you will find big, huge heronry. And that was the success story, because we have restored one of the finest forest community, that is Phragmites tamarisk forest community. Historically, it was all along the river Yamuna, but over a period of time, we lost that community. So we restored this, and suddenly we started getting action on it. And these are the trophic structure which started showing some results. Similarly, there was another site with what you call indicators. So we created and desilted a deep wetland of more than 7 acres, where you see we created it, we planted typhoid along, we created island, and now during winter we get more than 5,000 migratory birds coming from Europe, Siberia, China. And how we restore the terrestrial portion, that is also very interesting to see. When you come from ISBT side or Old Delhi railway station, or from Delhi University metro station, you will take this road which comes to the park. These were the initial photograph coming for the park, if you see. So we dressed the wetland, the mud came out utilized to create these islands, if you see, mounds, and then we played with a lot of grassy species initially, and we find out, as I said, that observational skill is very important in ecological restoration, because nature itself suggests that what are the common plant species or living things can be utilized an ecological tool for addressing these issues. So we kept working along the Uttar Pradesh border and Haryana border after paddy harvest, and we kept looking those agriculture field that after paddy harvest still water is there, it is highly saline, conductivity is EC is very high. Then what comes first? Then after 2 months of observation, we found that one grass called Leptocoloma fusca came first. We take out those grass and we studied and found that it has characteristics to reduce salinity, pH from 10 to 7. And that was a miracle. And we requested villagers that can we clean your agriculture field, and we take out those Leptocoloma fusca and brought to the park, planted all along, and over a period of time, pH has reduced, and we played with over 150 species of grasses, and these are some of the grasses like Sporobolus, which not only help in reducing pH and bringing nutrient level little high in the soil, but become food for Indian hare. So we had a lot of Indian hare also. So this is the way we started working on it through grasses, and now those mounds look like this. Sometimes when you are in Delhi, please come and visit and see. Not only that, one of the Gondo bubble, what you call as Gondo bubble or Prosopis juliflora, in a patch of area, it was creating serious problem. So knowing the fact that Delhi has a Delhi Preservation of Tree Act 1994, which won't allow you to remove any tree more than 15 centimeters of girth. So therefore, we came out with a solution, an idea that we went for heavy pruning and removal of lantana from the ground. And then we started planting our native species. And if you see, today that area become like this. We have 3-story forest. If you look at the ground vegetation, which is very, very thick. So by creating such forest ecosystem, slowly many bird species started coming in. And this is the pergent biodiversity profile of Yamuna Biodiversity Park over a period of time. And we started with 19 terrestrial species. Now we have about 1,000. Similarly, we started with 37 heavy fauna. Now we have about 200. So likewise, many species started coming in. And when we put camera trap, we were surprised to see that we have Indian common civet, we have Indian porcupine, if you see, we had Asiatic wildcat, we have jungle cat. Not only that, many other species like what you call Indian hare, wild pigs, nilgai, and one of the very important animal, that is hog deer, which enter into the park. Similarly, when you look at the active flood zone, which is phase 2 of Yamuna Biodiversity Park, where we have restored a wetland of over 100 acres with the objective to keep substantial amount of flood water. Because when you look at the wetland are not simple what you call waterlogged area. If you have waterlogged area, it will bring malaria. But it's not waterlogged area. It is a functional ecosystem. And it also acts as a nursery for river, because during flood water comes, even though flood recedes, water stay over a period of time, and a lot of plants, animals came through flood, and fishes, they grow over a period of time, and next year it goes to the main river channel, and therefore it acts as a nursery for river. Not only that, these are also act as a kidney for river, and we utilize this technique for constructed wetland, and successfully we have shown to the NGT, another official, that how constructed wetland can clean sewerage at low cost, better than STP, and quickly. So we have created 100 acres wetland, and those wetlands are very different, which I'll show you. Initially in active flood zone, we had depression, a small depression with a lot of Prosopis duliflora and Alternanthera and other weed with about 20-25 species of birds, which we had already published initially. Then what we did, we look at the various contour, we took GPS and we started looking at the area, that what should be the depth of wetland if we restore it, how much water from flood we expect, how we protect the embankment so that water can stay longer period of time and act as a what you call offshore reservoir. That this concept can also help Delhi, where Delhi is suffering from acute water scarcity. So how this water body can give an example to the government that further many such water body can be created all along the river to settle the issue related to water scarcity. So we dress the area, looking at the various contours, we created embankment, and we allow flood water to come in. And now you see this is the embankment. Flood water comes and it stays throughout the year. And you see, this is the first indicator of marshy area, that is parspermum grasses. It is for the student especially to see these parspermum grasses become very important, because if they start coming, you see your restoration process started, and the place which has nothing but filled, now full of lotus, if you see all along. And then what we did, if you see, this is the character of now wetland, where we started bringing characteristic grasses and tree species of floodplain. If you look at the floodplain restoration, it clearly suggests that how you look at the aquatic plant, then you have grass layer, then you have tree layer. Only then your floodplain will get restored. And today, during flood, this is the character of our restored phase 2, which receives water. If you far away you see, this is the river which brings lots of water to this wetland, and substantial amount of water stays. We have created this forest. You see, we established floodplain forest all along, everywhere, and we have created islands. It receives plenty of birds actually during winter from Europe, Siberia, and China. And this is the status. Last year we took drone photograph, and it looks like this. If you look at the restored wetland of phase 2 of about 100 acres. So not only that, the moment we created forest, a lot of herbivores like nilgai, wild pigs, hog deer came in, and one fine morning we got phantom of the forest. If you see, we had put camera trap even to understand, and this leopard came here and created a lot of what you call news in Delhi. And this leopard has stayed for 20-22 days, killed 2 nilgai calf, and addressed the what you call trophic cascade by sitting on the top of this ecological pyramid and suggesting that our ecosystem is functioning. But unfortunately, Forest Department of Delhi got very upset, and because it is a highly what you call human-dominated landscape, so they said, Faiyaz, I will send you behind the bar, take this animal out. Then finally, one cage was kept, and this animal was captured and sent to Saharanpur. So this is a story that how slowly various trophic structure has been developed in floodplain through floodplain restoration and bringing floodplain what you call forest ecosystem and grassland. This is the movement of leopard which we recorded, that how it enters somewhere from Kalesar or somewhere from Rajaji through river as a corridor, enter into phase 2, utilize our ecological corridor, came to phase 1, went to phase 2 again, and got here where we kept our cage. But it stayed for 20-22 days, killed 2 nilgai calf, suggesting that animal was ready to stay, but government didn't allow us. So not only that, these restored wetlands started getting a lot of birds, especially this large crested grebe, which we have lost long ago in Delhi. It came back. This is the place where you get red-crested pochard, full of red-crested pochard during winter. We have created a home for pentastalk, etc. So we have rediscovered one of the snake after 70 years, that is sea baldy snake, and it is a mild venomous snake, and we rediscovered after 70 years after, when we have restored this wetland. So this is the story of this wetland, and I would like to convey to the student especially that you need to become keen observer, because ecology is science of interaction. It is not science of book, because book can give you theoretical perception, but finding tools from the nature only makes you successful. Because when we are working at drain, we are sitting along the various kind of drains with domestic sewage, drains with what you call industrial effluent, that try to find out that what are the vegetation even growing in those drains, and those vegetations are in fact we are what you call utilizing for our constructed wetland system. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fayaz bhai.